On behalf of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, welcome, and thank you all for joining us for this E4 Mobility Alliance Council meeting, Women in Advanced Transportation. Now, I'd like to introduce the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, Judy Kruger.
Good morning, and thank you, Shane. Welcome again to the E4 Mobility Alliance Council meeting via Zoom. We've been meeting quarterly for well over 10 years, probably closer to 13 years. And the E4 Mobility Alliance is one of the key council meetings at the LAEDC. And now more than ever, we are looking at pulling our council meetings focused on recovery, reinvention, and how do we help businesses grow in the pandemic and post-pandemic. And we have an exciting lineup of speakers this morning. As you can see, our council meeting is focused on innovation and energy and mobility. And we have a council meeting today of all women in advanced transportation. We're focusing on the future of LAWA, the future of LAX. And we have an outstanding keynote, and we have a really outstanding panel of women. I'm pretty excited about this morning's council meeting, especially in light of some of the things that are happening on the national scale this week and the advancements of women in leadership. And having our first diverse women candidate and as vice president, we're always looking at what's happening in women in leadership. And we have a demonstration this morning of women in leadership that are not only our keynote, but our panelists as well. I'm really excited to look forward to hearing from them. But please let me introduce our keynote. Samantha Bricker was named Chief Environmental and Sustainability Officer for the Los Angeles World Airports in August of 2019. And she's responsible for overseeing all the environmental and sustainability programs at LAWA, as well as transportation and mobility. And Samantha is going to give us an overview of some of the programs and what's happening at LAWA, not only for the future of business, but what's happening in preparation for the Olympics, the People Mover, a lot of the programs that are going on at LAWA. But let me just also let you know that Samantha, by way of her background, she has an outstanding background in mobility, but she also has a Master's of Arts in Political Science from UCLA and a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science from Northwestern University. So welcome, Samantha. And for those of you who are logging in, welcome. But also, Samantha's going to give us an overview of her presentation and talk to us about the future of LAWA. While she's doing that, please feel free to submit some of your questions. We're going to have a few minutes after Samantha speaks to address some of your questions. Go ahead and write them in the Q&A, and we will address them right after Samantha finishes her keynote. Welcome, Samantha.
Good morning, Judy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me to this very esteemed group. I really look forward to being here with all of you. It is a very exciting time, as you said, in our country for women. It is an incredibly exciting time in our city and at LAX. And thank you for the kind introduction as well. LAWA really has a lot happening right now in terms of modernization, business opportunities, economic growth. And so we can get right into it. I want to present to you kind of where we are today, where we're going, give you a preview of some of the exciting projects we're working on, as well as kind of a glimpse into the future. There's really, as you can see, $14 billion in capital programs over 10 years. That's billion with a B. We don't deal with millions anymore at LAWA. Everything is billions. So it is a very aggressive program, but it is funded. And we are hoping to get the majority of the programs in time for the Olympics. There's 94 projects, and they include everything from terminal projects to airfield, landside projects, security and technology. And many of these projects you've heard about. So the next slide will show you kind of the crown jewel of our project, which is our Landside Access Modernization Program, or we refer to it as LAMP. This project will really revolutionize LAX. I'm sure all of you have experienced congestion at the airport. Getting to the airport, trying to get around that horseshoe, it is something that we're sort of known for. So we're trying to change that. And what we're doing is we're building an automated people mover train, which will be electric powered, a new consolidated rental car facility, an intermodal transportation facility, which will include parking lot and an APM station. And we will also connect finally with light rail in Los Angeles, which will be especially beneficial for our 50,000 employees who come to the airport area every day. They will finally be able to link with mass transit. So that is a huge accomplishment, something that has been in the works for quite some time. This is a $5 billion program altogether, and it is something that is actually already under construction, and the first element of that will be open next year. So as you can see on the screen, the kind of the crown jewel of the LAMP program is the automated people mover. The developer is the LAEDC team, which is a joint venture with several main primes as well as many subcontractors who are all part of this project. It's a 2.25 mile elevated guideway, so it's all elevated. There will be 6 stations, and the ride duration is actually 10 minutes from the consolidated rental car facility, which, if you know the area, is near La Cienega and the 405 freeway, all the way into the CTA. And I like to say, you know, people who have traveled to LAX, it often takes 10 minutes to go from Terminal 1 to Terminal 1. You don't usually get much faster than that. So going 10 minutes all the way from one end into the CTA, where you can walk to your terminal, will be a huge improvement for our passengers and our employees. The trains will run every 2 minutes, 24/7. The cost to ride will be free. And this is being done actually in a very innovative way with a public-private partnership. It's a $5 billion contract over 30 years, and the developer will design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. So again, one of the biggest P3 contracts, not only in the city, but in the country. And we are really leading the way, making sure that we give a lot of opportunities for small businesses. There's probably $1 billion in opportunities for small, local, and disadvantaged businesses working on our whole LAMP program. So again, the idea is not only to modernize the airport, but to ensure that we are growing our economic base and supporting our community. We can go to the next slide. So actually, this is really, no one really knows what an ITF West is. It's an intermodal transportation facility. It's kind of a fancy name for a big parking lot with an APM station. But this will be really revolutionary, because what we'll be able to do is allow for the pickup and drop off of passengers outside of the CTA. So instead of fighting Century or Sepulveda to get into the horseshoe, you can drop off people at this facility. They can hop onto a station, and within a couple of minutes, they'll be in the CTA and they can walk to their terminal. This actually is ahead of schedule, and we plan to open this early as part of the LAMP program, so it'll be open in 2021. We will be able to have people park there, and until the APM opens, we will shuttle them to and from the terminals. There's about 4,300 parking spaces. It'll have smart parking, it'll have valet, it'll have concessions. Eventually, we hope to have baggage check. So it's really going to be an amenity-filled parking structure that hopefully will encourage people to not come into the CTA or the central terminal area, but to use these facilities, which really avoids a lot of the traffic and congestion. So we're very excited for that to open next year. And you can see from this picture, maybe go back one slide, you can see the ITF being built in the background. The brown is the guideway for the APM, and you can see things are well underway for the ITF opening next year. So the consolidated rental car facility takes about 20 different rental car facilities that are scattered all over the airport and in the areas around the airport, and consolidates them into one facility. So this will be about a $6.4 million facility. It'll have, or square foot facility, it'll have 18,000 rental car stalls. It'll have a connection to the APM, there'll be a station there. We're building special off-ramps off the 405 freeway so people can access this facility right off the 405. And it'll have extensive solar, LEED silver, and a lot of sustainability elements. This is also being built as a public-private partnership. It'll be for 28 years, and it's about $2 billion for the cost of this facility. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of how big this facility is, this whole area will be the consolidated rental car. And we say you can fit 17 NFL football fields on the ground floor of the building, which means every NFL team can play each other at the same time and have a field left over. So that gives you an idea of how big this facility will be and how extensive it'll be. It'll be the largest rental car facility in the world once it's completed. But that's not all. In case you were wondering, we are also spending a lot of time and money looking at our terminals and making sure that they are ready for the Olympics. And we have a very extensive terminal development program also underway. So the first program, Southwest, is completing what we call Terminal 1.5, and it's sort of wedged into the middle of Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. And this, the key for all of our terminal improvements is really to increase connectivity. What we want people to do is we want people to be able to circulate easier amongst the terminals. We want to maximize and enhance security checkpoints. We want to ease congestion. So, the long queues of the past, we want to try to adjust. And we want to create more inviting entrances, more space, better facades. So all of these are part of our terminal projects. This project is actually nearing completion. We think it'll be ready early next year. And this will, again, really enhance security, provide additional space for ticketing and baggaging, and support with office spaces as well. So this is well underway and will be completed shortly. The next terminal improvement, and many of you have probably heard about this because it's a very extensive rehab of Terminal 2 and 3 for Delta. Terminal 3 has not been rehabbed in about 50 years. So this is an extensive upgrade for this terminal. It's about $1.8 billion. One of the phases is already under construction, and we are actually accelerating construction and think we will be able to finish early. We are also hoping that this will enhance connectivity between terminals 2 and 3. We'll have new ticketing check-in, security screening, baggage handling, and again, to improve the passenger experience and make it easier for our passengers to go back and forth between the terminals. So this project will be complete in 2023. And this project, Terminal 245, is about to start in earnest. It's about $1.6 billion. It will get a new, what we call head house, which is sort of the first facility you see as you come in. Will enhance the passenger experience with more screening, ticketing, check-in facilities, better hold rooms, the areas where you wait for the planes, and really just an overhaul of the entire terminal. We also, as with terminals 2 and 3, we will have connections to the automated people mover, and we will also make some enhancements to the airfield in this area. So very extensive rehab, and again, estimating completion by 2028 for the Olympics. Terminal 6, which is primarily Alaska, but it's a multi-carrier terminal that supports several airlines. Again, even though this was not done too long, this kind of a rehab was done several years ago, An upgrade will be happening to, upgrade passenger amenities, expand the whole rooms in the lounge, and again, just basically give a refresh and an upgrade. And the idea that this would be completed by 2023. So as you can see, once these projects are completed, almost every terminal in the central terminal area will be new. And this will be fantastic for passenger experience. Obviously, it'll be good for our airline carriers and our employees, and we'll be ready in time for the Olympics. So massive program all underway with the idea that they would be finished in the next few years. But that's not all. We are looking at potential future projects, and one of our big projects, another $5 billion plus project, is the Airfield and Terminal Modernization Project. And this is a project that, again, we're hoping to complete before the Olympics. There are several project elements that are part of this project. And again, we're trying to environmentally clear all of these elements right now. We're working on a big environmental planning study that will come out in the next few months. And we hope it generates a lot of support because, again, I think it will meet our future demand at LAX. LAX is scheduled to grow to about 111 million passengers by 2028. Now, those numbers were pre-COVID, but we still feel that because of the demand for air growth in the future, that we think we'll get there around 2028, 2030. So we need to make sure that our facilities can accommodate that growth. And so we're planning for the future in order to do that. The next slide will show you some of the benefits of this project. So we have airfield improvements, which will improve our taxiways, increase safety and efficiency, and reduce delays. Many of you have landed on the airfield and then have to, wait for gates or wait for planes to get out of the way. This will help expedite movements on the airfield. We also have 2 new terminals coming aboard. One is Terminal 9, which will be 12 new gates, and one is Concourse 0, which will be 9 new gates. These will be international capabilities that will enhance the guest experience. They will replace the West Remote Gate. So if any of you have ever landed and end up about 10 miles away at the West Remote Gates and have to take a bus in, this will eliminate that experience, and it will add new gates so that you don't have to cruise around the airfield or go to the West Remote Gates. This will allow for gates with international processing right in the central terminal area. And then we also wanted to take on the roadways, because if any of you have come through that tunnel on Sepulveda or come southbound on Sepulveda, you know that during peak times that can back up quite a bit, and it can take you 45 minutes just to get into the central terminal area. We are looking at redoing the roadways and actually adding about 5 miles of dedicated roadway that will just serve the airport. And so it'll alleviate that congestion with local traffic. It will allow for the free flow of traffic on Sepulveda, and we will have our own set of roadways coming into the CTA. So the next slide kind of gives an overview as to where these improvements are on the airport. So you can see the green areas, that would be new Concourse 0 and Terminal 9. On the lower right portion of the map, that green area would be east of Sepulveda. So the first time that we will be building passenger facilities east of Sepulveda. And we will be linking that facility to Terminal 8 with a pedestrian bridge over Sepulveda. Again, with this idea that you never have to go out and take a bus. You have linkages from one terminal to another that you can walk inside. So that's going to be very important. That Terminal 9 will also have an APM station connected to it. So again, connecting with the whole multimodal system for LAX. And then the next slide briefly just gives an illustrative view of where that's going to be. Just to orient you, if any of you have ever parked at Park and Fly, this is now going to be the site where that Park and Fly is. And so this will be connected to Terminal 1 Southwest, and you will go through Terminal 1 to get to these gates. And the next view shows you Terminal 9. And again, you can see in the foreground the APM station and guideway. There'll be a parking structure, a facility of some kind, and then the new terminal with the pedestrian crossing over Sepulveda to Terminal 8. The next slide. So here are some benefits for the overall project. Obviously, we want to improve the passenger experience. We want to meet future demand. We want to reduce busing and idling, which helps with air quality. We want to reduce traffic on neighborhood streets. We want to promote sustainable practices. So all of these buildings will be a minimum of LEED Silver. And we want to connect with regional mass transit. We also want to reduce wait times and reduce delays, which is good for our airline partners as well as our passengers. And perhaps most importantly, we want to really increase business opportunities. This will allow for new concessionaire opportunities, SBA and job opportunities during design and construction, and local job and local business opportunities. So again, this is roughly a $5 billion project. And we're hoping to get it entitled this year, this fiscal year, so by next summer. And we would then begin design and construction after that. So as you can see, we are really looking ahead and trying to make sure that we're meeting future demand and meeting the needs that we're going to have at our airport for the next 10+ years. So the next slide talks a little bit about opportunities for women at LAWA. And these are just some stats. Certainly, LAWA has done an amazing opportunity putting women in leadership positions. And as you can see, almost 50% of our assistant deputy general manager positions are held by women. Top officials, administrators, many of our managers are women. And we have just formed a new women's association to provide mentorship, support, and new opportunities and training from women at LAWA. I think it's important in light of what's happening in our city and our country to really stress that, you know, it has been difficult for women in many of these fields, especially transportation, and really more specifically construction. I know I'm often the only woman in the room when I go to meetings, or maybe there's one other. And I think it's really imperative for women who are in leadership positions to reach down and bring people up. I've promoted many women in my group. I have worked very closely with women across campus and really think that it is really imperative for women in leadership positions to mentor and encourage and develop that pipeline for women at LAWA. You know, we can see with our construction related programs, and I think some of our folks will talk more about this on the panel, that we have very robust SBE, LBE goals for all of our capital projects for design and construction, and many of those are women-owned businesses. And again, we want to get women not only to be subs on projects, we want them to be primes on projects. And we want to make sure that they have a seat at the table. We want to make sure that they're integral, that they're not relegated to, you know, the 2 or 3 sectors that women seem to have on many of these construction projects. But we want them to be the engineers. We want them to be the project managers. We want them to be the construction managers for these projects. And I think our group has done an amazing job, and Amber will talk more about that as the leader of that unit, for encouraging women not only within LAWA, but with our contractors, and ensuring that our contractors take this seriously and that they are held accountable, both in their contracts and in enforcement, to make sure that they are hiring women not only in construction, but as part of their design and construction teams, and that they're mentoring them and providing those opportunities. So you can see here that we have really made quite an effort to make sure that women have a good pipeline at LAWA, and that we are a good place to work for our contractors. And the next slide just gives a little bit of a preview of some of the opportunities that we have coming up. And this is just a really short list. I would encourage people to go to Bavin, which is our contracting website, to get an understanding of the opportunities coming up. But we have a huge opportunity with our principal architect and engineering team contract that will be coming out in the next month or so. That is going to be a multifaceted team that will be in charge of planning and architecture and engineering for future projects and studies at the airport. It will be very robust in terms of the number of opportunities, and again, encouraging SBEs to have a seat at the table. And right now those teams are being put together. And so I really encourage people to look into that opportunity, because it will be really shaping the vision of the airport for the future, and really, have a role in determining how we move forward in a lot of issues like cargo and airfield use and sustainable elements and pedestrian connections. So I think that's going to be an amazing opportunity. And then you also have, traditional construction services. We have things like roadways, we have electrification, we have our bus yard relocation, which is on the street. And then we have a few things coming up that aren't on this list. We have a request for information where we're trying to reimagine our flyaway service. It's something that I've been directly involved in, where we want to kind of blow up the old model of a fixed route bus to serve the airport. And we really want to get into on-demand and technology and marketing, and how do we partner with places like Coachella to encourage people to take flyaway. So we're going to be going out to the industry and asking for your best information on how to reimagine this contract going forward. So that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. We have noise monitoring opportunities coming out in the next few weeks. We have PM/CM opportunities for a new sound installation coming out. So, there's just a ton of opportunities beyond our capital improvement program that I really encourage people to look at, because it's a way to really diversify the businesses who are doing work at LAX. It's a way to encourage new businesses to get involved. And we really want to work with people who are bringing innovation and ideas and cutting edge technology to what we can do for the future. So it's a very exciting time at LAX. I know this was a lot of information, but I hope it gives you an overview of what we're working on, how we are trying to support our community and our economic development in the area. And we really look forward to working with all of you as these projects come to fruition to make sure that we are the gold standard of airports, and that we serve our community and our passengers to the best that we can. So with that, I turn it back over to you, Judy, and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Samantha. That was a fantastic overview. What a tremendous amount of projects that are happening at LAWA. And the visual that you're giving us is jobs, and vendor opportunities. And you mentioned SBEs, small business enterprises, and how women can get involved in that, women-owned businesses and diverse businesses. And I know that Amber and Lisette are going to talk about the vendor opportunities a little bit more in depth. But you gave us a great overview, Samantha. I appreciate that. Even looking at women in advanced transportation, how do innovative companies that are women-owned get involved with LAWA. And of course, I like how you described it as this LAWA's vision is growing the economic base. And that's really important, as we all know now, to how do we recover from a pandemic and the economic crisis. So we really appreciate what LAWA does and invest in the community and, again, the jobs. So we do have time for just a couple of questions. I'm looking through the questions that were submitted. And as Chief Sustainability Officer, Samantha, can you talk a little bit about what are the sustainability goals, especially in electrification? Any thought with electric goals for planes or helicopters or vertical lift? Can you speak to that a few minutes?
Well, actually, it's a very exciting time in sustainability at airports anyway. We just adopted a sustainability action plan early last year. And it's very robust targets and everything from energy to waste to water to air quality. And all of those things are incredibly important. And we've really pushed ourselves in conjunction with the mayor and the council offices to really go beyond. So in terms of specifically things like electrification, so there's a lot of aspects of electrification. Number one, we are electrifying all of our connections for airplanes. So when they come to the gates, they can go on electric power and they don't run their diesel or their engines, and so they can plug in, and that's a huge air quality benefit. It's a huge noise benefit, and it's something that we're putting that electric power at all of the gates. So that's something that's already underway. For things like sustainable aviation fuel, which is a huge new opportunity. We are actually already partnering. United is already using sustainable aviation fuel in almost all of their aircraft. And the challenge is getting more of it and bringing it to the airport. And so we are working in partnership. It's something that we've been outreaching to all of the airlines to see what we can do as a whole to bring that sustainable aviation fuel. And that is sort of the cutting edge for the future. To really, help air quality. It uses things like, waste to generate fuel. And it's something that airlines are very interested in, especially if we can find a way to mass produce it and to distribute it. So that's something that we're working on. We had a sustainability summit last year where we actually featured the company that is working on an electric airplane. And it is something that is very exciting. We have been in close contact, and we think, especially for an airport like Van Nuys, which we own, which is a general aviation airport where there's a lot of smaller planes, and where noise is an issue because you're flying over communities as well. That would be an awesome opportunity to bring electric planes to something like that. So that's something that we have been following and encouraging, and I think is on the horizon. This company, it's a local company, has been working very hard on that. So sustainability is a huge part of what we are. We can't do any of these programs without being a good neighbor and without ensuring that we are being good to the environment. So we are doing them both in tandem.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that. You did such a thorough job with your slides and overview. I think you covered just about all the questions that were submitted. So thank you very much. And I'm really excited about the electrification portion as well. We've been convening the ZEV companies. We have a unique cluster here in Southern California, whether it's electric trams, electric planes, electric VTOLs, trucks, scooters, all of it, and vehicles. And so we're excited about how that's going to integrate in LAWA as well. But thank you, Samantha. I do appreciate that. We're going to move on now to our panel. We have a really robust panel of speakers who are also going to talk about LAWA from the vendor opportunity, as well as we have one of our community-based organizations talking about DYI girls and their program. But I do have a moderator, Justine Johnson, who will moderate this panel and also introduce the panelists. And Justine is a colleague and a friend, and has been a good friend of the LAEDC and the E4Mobility Alliance for the last several years. But she also works in economic development, but she currently works for Ford Mobility. She's the mobility strategist in the city structures. And Justine is an Angelino. She was in New York City for a few years, and she came back to Los Angeles just a few years ago to work for Ford Smart Mobility. When she was in New York City for a time, she worked under the Bloomberg and de Blasio administrations, and she worked on City Taxi and Limousine Commission. She also worked for the New York City Economic Development Corporation and managed government and community relations for Mayor de Blasio's new commuter ferry system, the NYC ferry, and she's got some really interesting stories in what she did in New York. But we're glad that she moved back to Los Angeles. And Justine, thank you so much for moderating our panel today.
Thank you so much for having me moderate today's panel, Judy, and thank you so much, Samantha, for such a great overview of all the things happening at LAWA. So really looking forward to seeing a lot of these projects come to light over the next few years. So I just want to say, first and foremost, good morning to those who are watching from the West Coast, and for those in other time zones, good afternoon and good evening. And so I'm really excited to be here with such an amazing group of women who will be a part of this conversation today. I'll do a very brief introduction because they have such phenomenal backgrounds, and we'll talk more about that in our discussion. But first, I'd like to just introduce Amber Meshack. She is the Director of Business, Jobs, and Social Responsibility Division at LAWA, or Los Angeles World Airports. Amber is responsible for workforce and business opportunity programs, including ensuring delivery of inclusivity commitments for the $14 billion LAWA capital program, also overseeing LAWA's first source hiring program, and managing the small contractor development and bonding assistance program, and developing strategic partnerships for business and workforce development. So really happy to have Amber join us today. Our next panelist is Leticia Rodriguez. She is the Executive Director of DIY Girls. DIY Girls is a Pacoima-based nonprofit organization with a mission to increase girls' interest and success in technology, engineering, and making through innovative educational experiences and mentor relationships. And then lastly, we have Lisette Covarrubias, and she is the Program Deputy and Business, Program Deputy for Business, Jobs, and Social Responsibility Division for LAWA, Los Angeles World Airports. In her current role, Lisette provides executive management and coordination for this division. She also monitors and assists with adherence to the strategic plan and leads social responsibility initiatives. So thank you to all of our panelists for being here today. And I'm really excited about jumping into a conversation with you all, especially, I had a longer version of your background, but I'd love to hear, and we can kind of go into the order that I introduce you all, but just a little bit more about your career journey and how did you get to where you are today, and what really stood out for you in terms of why you decided to choose the career that you're in. So I'll turn it over to Amber.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for starting with me. I think that my career pathway was really through the side door, and I came as from a very non-traditional way into this industry. I actually have been a long-term public servant. Before that, I was actually a community organizer, a union organizer. So I came in really from the political side and really understanding, the value of public money, right? Like there's a saying, like public money is worth more than private money, because with public money, we can really push the agenda and push the, how investment works to benefit the public. So I think that as a woman, that's something you have to always be on the lookout for, opportunities that you may not have been considering. And I got the opportunity to work for the program executive for the Landside Access Modernization Program. And, Samantha, actually, I recruited her ahead in my mind as my mentor, and she was really someone who I, saw as like, wow, this is a possibility I didn't even know about before I came to the airport. And, she's really helped guide me, and I gotten to see, how she carries herself, how she exerts her leadership. And, she's someone who really walks the talk as far as pushing for women's involvement and being a leader at LAWA. So that's really my career path, kind of non-traditional, but always interested in how to, leverage and push like the institutional weight to do better for our stakeholders. And transportation is something that touches everyone's lives, and it's really If you look at, like, I know LAEDC does a lot of, you know, economic analysis. If you look, like, really something related to transportation logistics is about 50% of the economy is somehow connected to this. So it's huge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Leticia, I'll turn it over to you.
Of course, didn't unmute. Thank you for having me this morning. So I came, so my background is mostly in the nonprofit sector. So I spent the last 13 years mostly helping low-income students to prepare for college and graduate from college and go into careers that, you know, oftentimes their parents were service sector workers, janitors, and so this was very life-changing for our students. And similarly for our DIY girls, I think for me, I came to DIY girls from that background, and I think it was really important. It was kind of like the next step to really introduce girls to role models and mentors and careers that they might otherwise not necessarily be exposed to. Because a lot of the girls that we work with, again, like they come from low-income backgrounds, communities. They're mostly Latinas, so don't always see those role models and don't always have those experiences that maybe students in higher income communities might have to explore STEM and STEAM. And so that's essentially how I came to DIY Girls.
Thank you so much. And Lisette, any words from you?
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the panel. And listening to Leticia, I would have probably been one of those students that would have definitely benefited from a program such as that. Born and raised in Los Angeles, been here for over 40 years, and I think that is one of the reasons why I decided to work for the city of Los Angeles. As Amber said, you know, there is sort of power in, you know, being at the table in terms of advising or making decisions as to where public monies go. And not to say that within my position now, you know, I have such power, but there is influence, right? I received a master's degree from UCLA in urban planning, and I worked for the Department of City Planning with the city of Los Angeles. And I do have to say, you know, I've been working for the city now for 15 years. And even before that, I was part of the nonprofit sector working for immigrant communities, especially those with victims of domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, and their children. And so you know, throughout my career, I do have to pinpoint something that I've been very blessed in, that it's actually been women and women of color that have definitely given me my big breaks in my career. I mean, case in point, there's Amber, right? Right when she was appointed as a director of BJSR, you know, she was like, we've worked together before, and she had a certain vision for this division. And, you know, again, we kind of took the leap together. So I think there's a lot to say about, you know, having that type of network and ensuring that there are women and women of color at the table making these decisions, because you get fruits like Leticia, like myself, like Amber, like you, Justine, you know, it's important.
Thank you so much for that, and definitely agree. I think, you know, just hearing just you all and a lot of the work that you're doing, such phenomenal things, and really proud of each of you all for your commitment to service and really commitment to women as well. So thank you all. And I'm going to take a little bit of a pivot in this conversation, just because I know COVID-19 is a really big topic that has been in the news, you know, I'd say for the larger portion of 2020. And I know COVID-19 has had a lot of impacts on industries, and as well as just like day-to-day work functions. So I'd love to hear from each of you all of just, what maybe were some of the impacts that you all are experiencing, and any new insights now that we're now into a virtual world, any new things that you're like now getting a chance to explore something very different, or really test yourself to new opportunities. So I can turn it back over to Amber and you could start.
Sure. Obviously, COVID has turned the transportation and aviation upside down. I think we're all still trying to find our way, and I think definitely the leadership of our CEO Justin Urbachi, but also Samantha Bricker, and just all the women on our team has been really instrumental in making sure that we're staying connected to our stakeholders. And I think what I can also say that I'm grateful for, and I is that in terms of, like Samantha was talking about, advance the electrification and move towards a lot of the kind of innovative solutions. Like, we had already kind of foreseen that, and if anything, I feel like this crisis has been a catalyst for us to kind of just push forward with what we know already has to happen. So it's definitely I think obviously it's definitely a struggle with the levels of stress and anxiety and lack of certainty that everyone is dealing with. But again, I think our women leadership have really been instrumental in kind of helping us adjust to that as an organization. I think that the automation, we're definitely thinking about, again, with our leadership at LAWA, we'd already been thinking about, like, innovation is one of our core values. So we'd already been long thinking about how automation is going to change our workforce, change the way airports work. And now we're just having to move towards that faster. And of course, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I think that it's always, it's reassuring that we had already put a lot of thought into that and developed the right partnerships so that we could pivot towards that. And I think that's a lesson for institutions, is that you have to stay, connected to your stakeholders. You have to always be thinking ahead, and you have to be thoughtful about how you pivot in times of crisis. So I think that for us, we have to look at, I think we're going to see changes in business travel, and we have to think about how do we move toward, but we're ready for the Olympics, right? So that's going to be a lot of tourism and family travel, and we're going to be ready. And, I think we're going to see moving to, like, people are not going to stop ordering from Amazon and, overstock, and, and we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready for that cargo movement and for those logistics jobs that are coming in, and for those changes to the retail sector, and for all of that. And so I think that is something that's the challenge of COVID-19, but also something exciting. And as well, I think many of you may know that LA Economic Development Corporation is one of our local stakeholder partners that helps us prepare and envision and analyze what that future is going to look like.
Thank you. And I guess, Lisette, I don't know if you want to just jump in also in terms of from the LAWA perspective before I turn it over to Leticia.
Sure. And just piggybacking on what Amber was saying, in terms of ensuring that we continue as an organization to be connected and to have strong communication, I do have to say that for me personally, what COVID-19 has brought on in terms of, like, something new for us or a challenge is definitely the technology. And so ensuring that we all learn with the evolving technology is so important, because now it's like in my face every day, right? And I was not there. I was definitely, obviously I know how to use a computer, but the Zoom, the chats, the QuickBase, the SharePoint, all of that, it was like, whew, a huge learning curve. And it definitely brought me out of my comfort zone, and because I understand that for an organization as large as LAWA, we are going to depend on these applications and these softwares to ensure that the services that we're providing to our stakeholders are being done, to ensure that we are able to communicate in this manner. I'm still learning, you know, I have to say I have my challenging days, but that's definitely something that COVID has definitely brought to the forefront for me.
Got it. Yes, we all are definitely still learning. And I guess speaking of learning, Leticia, if you could talk a little bit more about any impacts, especially working in the nonprofit space and especially with youth, any insight that you have as well.
Yeah, so I think for us in the nonprofit sector, and especially at DIY Girls, the impacts of COVID-19 were more so just, it really moved us to think about the way that we offer our programs, our program design, what kind of programs we were going to be offering. Our programs are really hands-on, so introducing girls to tech and engineering. We have instructors who meet with the girls at school sites, on campus. Our program staff and I were usually there, and so for us to reimagine, well, what does this look like in a virtual setting, and how do we get these kids out to our girls, to the students that we serve in a safe way. So we've essentially been able to transition all of our programs to virtual programs. And again, it was just a lot of reimagining what this is going to look like. So for example, in the summertime, we normally would offer a summer woodworking camp where our girls they design and create planters, some wooden planters, and they learn about healthy eating and gardening. And, you know, the girls are using table saws and hand saws and really learning how to use powered tools. And it was unfortunate because it's one of our programs where, you know, we really are teaching girls that they can do anything, right? If you can use a table saw, like, have no fear, like, you can conquer anything. And so again, we had to like reimagine what that would look like in a virtual setting. And we ended up pivoting and having like a similar theme, but instead of building the planters, we did a 3D design and printing workshop. So the girls learned how to 3D print on Tinkercad, and we 3D printed their planters at the office. We took video of it so all the girls could see how the 3D printing works. And you know, all the girls got their planters at the end of our programming. And so we're continuing on with our fall programs as we normally would, but just in a virtual setting. And I would say just one thing that we have to be really patient with the girls, because everyone has a different situation. And so we've done our best to make sure that all of the girls have access to the technology that they need at home. I know that our school partners in LAUSD has also done a lot of work around that, but understanding that girls have different Wi-Fi connections, different circumstances at home that could be affecting, you know, whether they have the camera on or off. So just being mindful of all of that, and really being patient with the girls, because it's so much easier, you know, when you're there with the girls in person. So just figuring out the best way to explain things in a virtual setting.
Thank you for that. And Leticia, before you go on mute, I have a quick follow-up question in terms of just what's the recruitment process for DIY girls? I don't know what age range you focus on. Why is that age range so critical? You know, I know that, you know, a lot of studies have shown that reading levels up to third grade, if you start to see those challenges, it does have an impact in terms of high school performance and more. But we just want to interest in knowing more about the recruitment process.
Yeah, so at DIY Girls, we work with girls from 5th through 12th grade, and we actually just started up an alumni program as well to connect more of our alumni with internship opportunities and really set them up for success in STEM careers in the future. We start as young as 5th grade, so the girls, we start recruitment with girls who are 10 and 11 years old, and a lot of the reason for that is the research that shows that by that age, between the ages of 4th to 8th grade, a lot of girls no longer identify as being good at math or being interested in STEM. So it's important to us to really find ways to engage the girls in STEM at a young age, make it fun and exciting for them. And because, you know, when you're in 5th grade, I mean, you kind of know what you want to do when you grow up. And a lot of times, for, like I mentioned before, for girls in our communities, you don't always know what an engineer is. the different types of engineering, or that these are possibilities. So, you know, at that point, we're introducing them to careers, but more so just helping them understand like tech and engineering and circuit building and these skills that they could use in the future, but in a fun and exciting way that it really just draws them to see that tech and engineering, this can be fun, and this is exciting for them. And as far as the recruitment process, we partner with 15 schools in the Northeast San Fernando Valley region of Los Angeles, and we work with the school partners to recruit girls to our programs. And again, now with the virtual setting, we'll be working with the principals and the teachers to see how we can come into some of the virtual classrooms to recruit girls to our programs. And we also have, because we work with 5th through 12th grade girls for our middle and high school programming, we're also able to pull from girls. We have all of the phone numbers for all the girls who have gone through all our elementary school program, and we're able to continue to follow them and, you know, text them, speak with their parents to enroll in our programs.
Thank you so much for that. Awesome work for sure. I want to pivot really quickly, especially when we talk about recruitment efforts, to Amber and Lisette. If we could talk a little bit more about what's LAWA's practices in terms of what type of skill sets do you look for when recruiting and hiring, you know, for any position within LAWA. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think that, well, I guess I just want to, piggybacking off of what Leticia was discussing in just the previous conversation about COVID. I mean, I think that what we've seen obviously across our nation is that COVID has provided opportunities for us to pivot to innovation, but it's also revealed, you know, kind of some of the structural inequities in our system. So for example, you know, we have focused on we have a higher LAX apprenticeship readiness course that really helps, you know, people who've been structurally kept out of good middle-class construction careers, including women, people of color, people who've had involvement in the criminal justice system. We have a very successful program to do that unfortunately had to be suspended until we could figure out a way to safely, you know, hold those classes again. And that's really, you know, a material impact. Like, you have to learn, if you're going to be doing construction, you have to learn how to swing a hammer or, you know, pour concrete or whatever have you. So we can't do that virtually. And by the same token, we had a Build LAX program to really help small and local and minority contractors really prepare them for opportunity at LAWA on the big capital program that, you know, Samantha discussed. And I think that on the one hand, we can do some webinars and things virtually, and we are continuing to do that. But a big part of that program was really developing the relationships and the networking, because at the end of the day, people hire who they like and people hire who they know. And that's just a fact. And so when women, you know, people of color, smaller businesses don't get a chance to hobnob with the primes and the big companies that are going to really provide a lot of the hiring opportunities, it does end up impacting and, you know, not allowing us the chance to address that inequity. So let's be frank, like those are some of the challenges that we're facing. For us, some of the things that we always advise our small businesses is, you know, what's gonna help you get hired is really solving a problem, right? Like, you're there to solve a problem for your client, whether your client is the city and it's LAWA, whether it's a prime contractor, whether it's a higher tier contractor. You're there to solve a problem and to be good at solving that problem and to not create any other problem. So a lot of what we're doing is training them on how to, you know, listen to the contractor, listen to what their needs are, understand the program objectives, understand how you fit into the program aims. And that's really what our Build LAX program and our higher, like all of our training programs are really about teaching you how to listen to your clients' needs and respond to them. And so I think that's the same thing that as a boss, as a hiring person, that you're going to look for is somebody who is going to solve a problem, right? And so that's why, like I said, I don't have a background in tech. I don't have a background in engineering, but somehow I was able to kind of like identify, okay, this is a little niche for me. I can get in and help LAWA. LAWA has problems to solve. You know, our contractors need they need construction labor, and they need small businesses to get these programs done. And so, you know, that was an opportunity that I saw for me and my team to get in. And so it's the same kind of vision that you have to have as a small business person. Like, what's the problem that I solve? And one thing that we always advise against, and something that especially like women are used to being a Jill of all trades, however you want to call it, right? Is like, don't try to do too much. Like, so many people try to be, you know, everything to everybody, and you won't succeed. This is better for you to focus on what you do well, solve that, you know, solve that problem for your client, and get in there and do a good job at it.
And just to, you know, again, just following up with Amber's comments, I think overall as well, what we try to definitely put out there is, especially if, you know, for women overall, just trying to get into either a city, you know, a job, or even a job within LAWA, I think two of the other major components of this, you know, from solving problems is also the written oral communication. Right? We write to different stakeholders. I mean, I'm talking everyone from the mayor's office all the way down to, you know, Penny Sue, who lives in Westchester. And so in order to communicate, to get what your message across is, we have to know and understand an audience and be able to appropriately communicate both orally and in writing, you know, and because that makes a world of a difference. The other one is obviously the public speaking. Aside from events such as this one, where, you know, we are here representing Los Angeles World Airports, you know, folks will be representing their own small businesses. You know, employees will be advocating and representing themselves. And so I think it's really important that we definitely, you know, as we are communicating with others, that we let them know you need to hone in both your oral and you know, written skills, just to make sure that we are, we're on top of, you know, it makes you like, oh, you definitely stand out of the crowd, but B, that you're also representing your organization in the most professional manner.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take a quick pause. I'm going to check the chat box really quickly, just because I know we have about a little under like 5 or 3 minutes. So I'll just want to make sure if there are any questions that I just jump to those. I'm just going to take a quick look. Okay, so we do have one question here. Specifically, it's for folks at LAWA. So the question here is, what would be the starting point to look for work with LAWA and to have a chance to present a solution or an idea? So I'll take a pause. And anyone else who has questions, feel free to send those to the chat as well.
Sure. Well, my division is really working on trying to make sure there's no wrong door to, you know, to enter the process. I can throw out a few things. One, we have a monthly virtual webinar called Doing Business with LAWA that you can go to our website, lawa.org, and find the registration for. And that's the first Wednesday of every month. So that'll give you an overview of just a lot of the things that you'll want to know as far as like how you become certified as a small or woman-owned business, or participating in things like this is a huge way, because just, again, understanding, like as a small business, you want to understand your client's needs. So just understanding like this capital program and what LAWA is trying to achieve, you know, that gives you a lot of insight. And so going and looking and seeing who are those, what is that capital program? What are we trying to do over the next 10 years? And really looking ahead at like opportunities, the opportunities that are in place right now. I'm not going to say it's too late, but, you know, a lot of those kind of opportunities have already been divvied up. You want to look ahead at what we're doing in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, and then start talking to who are the companies that are likely to go after that work. Get on a team as early as you can, right? So like Samantha mentioned that Lynx is the developer that's delivering the automated people mover. I mean, that procurement process took over 2 years. So they've been building their team, you know, 3 years before we even awarded the project, you know, let's say. So it's really a long-term game about networking, understanding what the the project direction is, and then also reach out to my staff. I have Chamberlain DeRue and Shanette Anderson are specifically business engagement and business affairs leads. We can introduce you to some of the folks within LAWA that can kind of help you understand the LAWA projects. We can give you guidance as to like, how do you become certified as a small business? We have vendor presentations at times, depending on what kind of product or vendor you are. You know, you might want to do a presentation to one of our deputies that actually purchases these goods and services. So there's a number of opportunities, but I would say it just starts with, go ahead and email us, businessandjobs@lawa.org, and we can learn a little bit more about where you are in your process and kind of give you some guidance as to where you should be.
That's helpful. And I was going to say, I was going to ask you, can you actually type that email into the chat box for those who do have ideas that they're interested in either presenting to folks at LAWA, or if they're just like, I want to know more about what opportunities, if you could just add that email address, that'd be really great. So thank you. And I would say if you had any comments.
Sure. Lisette, can you type it in? My laptop just crashed, but speaking of technologies, but it's business and jobs, JOBS, at LAWA, LAWA.org. Business and jobs at LAWA.org. Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
So we have about 2 minutes left, and I would love to ask 1,000 more questions, but unfortunately we are at time. I just want to say thank you so much for each of you all and just your leadership and your work within your respective industries. It makes me feel really proud to see you all here, women of color representing roles of leadership within our respective industries. So I am very inspired, and thank you all. I'll turn it back over to Judy for any closing remarks.
And thank you, Justine, and thank you, Leticia, Lisette, and Amber. We really appreciate all that good information, not only from the vendor perspective, but the pipeline for girls in STEM and STEAM and the advanced transportation sector, Leticia, but also how to do business with LAWA as a job creator. We will follow up with an email with some of this information and direct links. You mentioned having a monthly how to do business with LAWA on Wednesdays, so we'll follow up with links to that as well. But thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. This is what we do with E4. We're very much focused on the E4 Mobility Alliance to help understand what is happening in advanced transportation. And it was great to hear what's going on at LAWA and what some of the electrification goals are, some of the vendor goals. You know, again, this looks like a great job creator for our region, and also bringing in minority-owned businesses, diverse businesses to the conversation. So we really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, E4 Mobility Alliance meets quarterly, so stay tuned for what the next quarter council meeting presents. A couple of items. We have a team, actually quite a large team, that's reaching out and providing business assistance to those that are looking for grants and loans and reopening guides. So we have a business assistance team that's helping small businesses with those resources. It's on our website. Please reach out if that is needed. But again, thank you, and stay tuned for what our next council meeting will be. Have a good day. Thank you.